All right, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to break down a slow country lead that has some harmony in it, harmonized thirds, harmonized sixths. We're going to talk about what those are, and I'm going to show you how you can introduce them to your playing when you're improvising. You don't have to sit and map this stuff out. There's some visual things you can use by seeing chord shapes and where these harmonies live within those chord shapes, and you can start playing them and using them when you improvise. This is the kind of thing that I wish somebody had sat down and showed me years ago. It took me so long to figure this out. It's really not difficult. It's just one of those things that, at least when I was learning how to play, it just didn't get talked about very much. So I've got this lesson split into two parts. In this video, we're going to go through the first half of that lead. If you'd like to watch the second half in that part 2 video, download the tablature, download the MP3 jam tracks so that you can practice playing everything we're going to talk through. You can get those extra materials by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP551. All right, so this song is played in the key of C, and it's a fairly standard chord progression. It's fairly predictable, I should say. So it goes from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, which is an F. But before we get to the F, we play the 4 chord of the 4 chord. So we go C, and then we play B flat, and then F. That's the kind of thing you might hear in like a George Jones song or Merle Haggard. I hear that in like kind of old school country, and I love that sound. And we're going to be kind of following those chord changes as we break it down. So anyway, that's what's going on. We're in the key of C. Those are our first chords. Let's listen to this first part, and then we'll talk about what's going on. All right, so we're going to start off in C major pentatonic scale, pattern 1, for this. For that kind of pedal steel country lick. And once you learn how to do this and you associate it with your pattern 1 major pentatonic scale, you'll be able to use this anytime you need it. So I'm thinking about, so we're playing over C chord, right? So I have my C chord here using the A shape, and then I have my C chord up here using the G shape. This is that shape that's kind of awkward. I have to split it into 2 parts. So I have like the top part and the bottom part. I can't play the full thing. My fingers just aren't long enough. So, but it doesn't matter. The shape is really just defining an area of the fretboard. And that's where pattern 1 of your major pentatonic scale lives. So if we look at C major pentatonic scale, pattern 1, you know, the boundaries are from 8th fret to the 5th fret on the 1st string. You know this pattern. But associate it with your chord shape, your G shape. Or you can associate it with your A shape. That's in my C chord using the A shape. But that little triad lives inside of major pentatonic scale, pattern 1. Okay, so once you can kind of see where we're at and get your boundaries, then let's look at this lick. So what I like to do is I like to take my pinky and bar strings 1 and 2 on the 8th fret. And then I use my middle finger. Now this is just what works best for my fingers. I find I have the most leverage when I do it this way, because I can also use my index finger behind that, because I'm going to be pushing and doing a full bend on the 7th fret 3rd string. But you can see where this note's coming from, right? C major pentatonic scale, pattern 1. And then I'm going to hit that 8th fret 2nd string, and then watch this. Now I'm going to release it. Notice I pushed it up and held it up. That's the hard part. That's why I'm using 2 fingers to help kind of lift that string. Release it, and that gives you that pedal steel sound. So that's one takeaway, that idea. And when you connect that to your major pentatonic scale, pattern 1. So somebody out there, a light bulb's gone off, and you go, oh cool, I can remember that. I know my pattern 1. And I can get that kind of pedal steel thing. Let me show you 2 other things you can do that are also pedal steel sounding in the same area. So I can go like that, right? That's the first thing. I can come from the 3rd string to the 1st string, which we kind of did there. And I can also, if I use my pinky on the 8th fret 1st string, I can do a full bend on the 8th fret 2nd string like this. So I have 3 kind of options. I have this one, I have this one, and I have this one. And between those 3 ideas, I want you to just kind of play around with them. You can do so much really cool old school country pedal steel sounding stuff with that one little idea. And there's a lot of country licks are made out of that area. Southern rock as well. That kind of reminds me of Leonard Skinner sort of sound. And that's where it's coming from. So when you connect it back to your major pentatonic scale and you connect your major pentatonic scale back to your chord shapes, then you can access the stuff anytime. Okay, so that first lick then, I did that, and then I did another bend. And then I came down to this 5th fret 3rd string. Okay, now this is where the song goes to the 4 chord. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, the 4 chord, when you're playing in the key of C, is F, right? So we're going from our C to our F chord. But instead of going directly from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, we're going to go to the 4 chord of the 4 chord. It sounds weird, but that's what's going on. So the 4 chord of F is a B flat. And so that's what's going on. So when we're going from our C, we're going to come down to that B flat, then the F. Isn't that a cool transition? And that probably reminds some of you of some classic country song. It's in a lot of stuff. But since that's a unique thing, that B flat, and that's out of key, we want to follow that. If I were just staying in the key of the song, which would be the key of C, it's going to sound a little weird over that when the song goes to that B flat. So I want to try and highlight that. And all I have to do is just find B flats, a B flat chord somewhere on the fretboard. And the best one would be the one that's closest to where I'm at, so I don't have to jump all over the fretboard. So I'm already up here out of my C chord using the G shape. So my next nearest neighbor to play that B flat would be here. That's the B flat using the E shape. So I'm barring on the 6th fret, and then these 3 fingers are making up the E shape. So that's the closest B flat, and then my closest F in this neighborhood is right here. That's my F chord using the C shape. So you can see that those 2 chords are right there. And so when I play this next lick, those notes, those harmonies, are coming out of these chord shapes. All right, let me explain it. So we're going to be on strings 4 and 3, and we're going to start here on the 5th fret, and then we're going to slide up to the 7th fret, just strings 4 and 3, 1 finger, and then I'm going to put my middle finger down. I'm going to keep that bar on the 7th fret, strings 4 and 3, and then my middle finger goes down on the 8th fret, 4th string. So we have, and this is what I'm getting at, these 2 notes. These are 2 notes out of my B flat chord using the E shape. If I were to play that chord, the full chord, but just play strings 4 and 3, it's those 2 notes. So I went, and then this is just a little embellishment off that. So that's a hammer-on pull-off and then a slide. This is happening on the 4th string. Between the 7th fret and 8th fret, there's a pull-off, then slide back to the 5th fret. And then I'm going to do another hammer-on, this time between my 5th fret and 7th fret on the 4th string. But I'm also playing that 5th fret 3rd string. So it's like this. Now those 2 notes are 2 notes out of my F chord. That's where we were going. Remember, we're going to the F chord. And if I were to play that F chord and just play strings 4 and 3, it'd be that harmony. Now that's a harmonized third. This is also a harmonized third. What is a third? Why do I say harmonized third or harmonized 6? It just means if you're playing the major scale, those 2 notes, these 2 notes are 3 intervals on that major scale apart. That's all that means. And so for the most part, harmonized thirds are played on, where you have 1 note on 1 string and 1 note on the next string, and they're right beside each other. Harmonized 6 tend to look like this. where you've got a string in between them. We'll get to that in a minute. So we have that little embellishment to cover the B flat to the F, the 4 chord of the 4 chord. All right, so now the song goes back to the C chord, and I'm going to stay in the same neighborhood that I was in, and I'm going to play this. And all I'm doing is basically playing an arpeggio of that C. I'm just tracing the notes right out of that C chord. Now here's a little sidebar. I just want to mention this. This will blow your mind, and you can test me on this if you don't believe me. But no matter where you're at on the fretboard, the answer to what you're looking for, whether it be an arpeggio, a scale, a chord, it's always right beside where you're at. It doesn't matter if it's a major chord, minor chord, any chord, diminished chord, augmented chord, they're all right beside where you're at. Anything you can think of, it's right beside where you're at. Anything. So a good way to test that is just drop in anywhere on the fretboard and say, okay, I'm going to find my E major pentatonic scale right here. I'm going to play my F sharp diminished chord right here, or I'm going to play my, whatever. You can jump in anywhere, and anything that you're looking for, it's right there. And that's the power of understanding the fretboard. And to me, the best way to do that is with the cage system. Those 5 chunks, C, A, G, E, D. Once you can get those 5 shapes and understand that, you can start connecting all the other stuff to those 5 shapes. And to me, that's the best way to organize it all. It's like you have 5 drawers, and anything you want can be in any of those 5 drawers. So anyway, that's a little plug for the cage system. I'm just such a fan of it. So this lick here, which is basically a major arpeggio, we're going to start with this C triad. So there's my C chord using the A shape, C chord using the G shape. I'm just playing strings 4, 3, and 2 here, barred on the 5th fret. We're going to play that, and then we're going to play the 6th fret 2nd string. That's a note out of my C major chord, or C major scale, sorry. So we come back to the 5th fret 2nd string, down to the 7th fret 3rd string, and then watch this. So after the 7th fret 3rd string, we're going to come back to the 5th fret and play string 3, 4, and then down to this note, which would be the 7th fret 5th string. And these notes are in my C chord. This is my C chord from the G shape. Remember, I said I can't play it all. I just have to do it in sections. So this would be like the bottom part of that. So that's where that lick comes from. All right, so now the song goes to the relative minor, which is our A minor. And I went like this. I just walked it up to this A note on the 4th string. So we go 5th, 6th, 7th. That's a chromatic little walk up. And then what's nice about, since we're playing over the A minor pentatonic scale is the same as C major pentatonic scale, same exact notes. So this little area that we were in, now we can stay in that area, and it's going to sound minor. It's going to fit perfectly over this A minor chord. Watch this. So that's what we're going to play. Walk it up here. Then we're going to come to the 5th fret 3rd string. Do a full bend on the 7th fret 3rd string. And then up to the 5th fret 1st string and walk it down. So it's a great blues lick. And then we're going to do a bend and release on the 7th fret 3rd string. Down to the 5th fret 3rd string. And then we're going to land on that note, which is our D note, back on the 7th fret 3rd string, because that's at the point where the song goes to the D chord. And it's a perfect fit to land on that note. So all right, so the chord we're playing over is a D chord, and we landed on that D note, 7th fret 3rd string. Now the next thing I'm going to do is a harmonized 6. Watch this. And that works right off of that D chord. Let me show you how to play it, then I'll show you what's going on, at least the way I'm thinking about it. It's going to be on the 7th fret, strings 4 and 2, and then we're going to come up, middle finger goes up to the 9th fret, 4th string, index finger goes down on the 8th fret, 2nd string. Then we're going to put both fingers in the same fret, 10th fret, strings 4 and 2, and then we're going back to where we just were, 9th fret and 8th fret, strings 2 and 4. So we have... That's how I played that. And all of that represents my D chord. And when we land on that, that's where the song goes to the G, and you can hear it. So when I played that just now, I was using hybrid picking. That means I was picking on the 4th string, and then I'm plucking with one of my fingers on the 2nd string, playing strings 4 and 2. These are harmonized 6, by the way. I should have mentioned that. So that's how I'm playing that part. And this little piece of this little piece that I'm playing would be a piece of D Mixolydian scale, but played in harmony. It's just a little chunk of it, but that's what's going on. Now, I don't want to lose anybody. I know every time I mention one of the modes, somebody always gets confused, and I'm not trying to make this a lesson on theory. I'm trying to make this a very practical way that you can just use these things in real time without having to get so caught up in all this stuff. And the truth is, when it comes to harmonized 6 or harmonized thirds, most people just connect them to chord shapes. You use a chord shape as a launch. So remember, at this point in the song, we're playing over the D chord. If I were to play my D chord here using the A shape, and I played I looked at the 7th fret and I played only strings 2 and 4. That's where that harmony is. To me, when I play this little thing, I used this chord shape in my mind as an anchor to launch with. Now I could have came down and played my D chord using the C shape down here and played strings 2 and 4. Just sticking to 2 and 4 for now. And I've got harmonies there as well. Now here's the thing. When it comes to these little harmonies, they follow, really, there's just two patterns to learn. The first one I'm going to call straight. And why I'm calling it that, just to make it easy, we'll call it straight or S. But when I'm playing these two, they're both fingers are in the same fret. And if I'm looking at that, they're in a straight line, right? If I were to draw a line between them. The next shape is at a diagonal, so we'll call that shape D for diagonal. So we have shape S for straight, and straight D for diagonal. And it's those two shapes that you can play your entire scale. You can play Mixolydian, you can play your major scale. You just have to know which one to use, and your ear can help you adjust for that. But if you use your chord shapes as launch pads, so if I started down here and played my D major scale, for example, I'm just using a series of those straight and diagonal shapes. Now, if I were to play my D Mixolydian, I'll just do that just so you can hear the difference. It's going to sound a little sadder or a little bluesier. Listen, most of it's the same, except for one note. I'll explain that in a minute. Hear that difference? So in two spots there, I made an adjustment from the major scale. And what I did in those adjustments is I flatted the 7th interval, just like we would do if we were playing our D Mixolydian scale, just the scale without a harmony. It's the same thing. I had to adjust it in two spots though because there's two notes. So in two sections, I had to flat the 7th. The other cool thing about these little patterns are you can follow the same patterns on strings 1 and 3 as you can do on strings 2 and 4. So if I went like, where I have straight, diagonal, diagonal, I can do the same thing. I just have to find a different chord voicing to start with. But if I'm on strings 1 and 3, watch this. Same thing, straight, diagonal, diagonal on strings 1 and 3. And this time though, I was playing out of my D chord using the C shape. Up here I was using my D chord using the A shape. Anyway, that's what's going on there. So then over the rest of that D chord, I played that, and then I came back to this point, index finger on the 8th fret 2nd string, middle finger on the 9th fret 4th string, And those are two notes out of would be out of my G harmony. Now they're also in the D harmony. I realize that, but they're also but they also fit over my G chord, which is where the song went. It went to the G chord, and then I walked it down to the C, which is our which is where the song goes. It goes from the G, which is the 5 chord, back to the C. So I just walked it down using this same little formula, it's diagonal, straight, diagonal, it's like the same little thing. The only difference is I did some sliding. I went a little slide in, and then a little slide back, and then back down here, which would be my C. This would be, think of your C chord in first position, but playing strings 2 and 4. And then I came up to this position, which is my C chord, using the A shape. So you can see this harmony, strings 2 and 4, are in this chord shape. This is out of my C chord using the A shape. So from this D, we have a and all of that was played using Harmonized 6, only on strings 2 and 4, and they're all using either the straight shape or the diagonal shape. You just have to adjust depending on what's going to work over a chord. Now, the way that you want to get good at that is just using your ear. And your ear will the more you play around with it, I'm telling you, if you put on the jam track and just use these little Harmonized 6 over the chord shapes like that, you can start to create them. And don't forget about strings 1 and 3. You could also do that. You could use your, for your D, down to my G, right? You've got all those options now. All right, so I'm going to wrap up this part 1 video right there. We've already covered a ton of information. I'm exhausted just from saying it and trying to think it all through. Now, come join us at Active Melody, where we'll go over part 2, the second half, and then you'll also, remember, in this lesson page, you'll have access to the tablature, the on-screen tab viewer, the MP3 jam tracks, so that you can practice playing all this. I have them in multiple tempos. If you want to do it slower, we'll have a slower version for you as well. So come check all of that out at activemelody.com. And remember, this lesson number is EP551. All right, we'll see you over there.